Welcome to another episode of Between Two Dots, where we have the pleasure of interviewing people that are living pretty extraordinary lives. Our goal always is to uncover intentional living. And this week we are joined by Trena Laine. Trena Laine has been in the beauty industry for 20 years, and her work's not just about beauty. It's about transformation. She's a thought leader at the intersection of beauty and personal development, helping individuals break free from hustle culture, embrace their true selves, and build meaningful careers. Through her masterclasses, consulting, and book, she helps others to redefine success on their own terms. This was a pretty special episode because there is mention of a good friend that had passed away. So we hope you enjoy this episode. Thanks, Trina, for taking the time to chat with us.
Trina, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Where are you taking the call from today?
Home, the comfort of home.
Comfort home. And I assume that is in somewhere in Calgary,
Yes,
but
downtown right now, currently for now.
got it. And has Calgary always been home for you, or are you one of many imports, if you will?
Yeah, I guess you could kind of say that. I am actually a Saskatchewan girl. I was born and raised in Moose Jaw.
Mm.
And around just over 15 years ago, my late husband and I found ourselves in Calgary. We're always out here anyways, and I always just loved Calgary. So I was like, I think we should make this our home. So here we are.
There you go.
Yeah, wild how you end up here. I went to Moose Jaw one time,
One
and
time.
that was to buy a car with my dad. And I remember driving to Moose Jaw, being like, "What is this place?" And I think we asked around, and we realized that there was like an Al Capone tunnels tour or something like that.
Mhm.
And yeah, we stayed the night, and then we drove back to Calgary. And then I got into a car accident the next day, so my car was written off. So that entire 7 hour drive back and forth was for the Al Capone tunnels. But how yeah, how's life in Moose Jaw growing up?
It's funny because I actually talk a little bit about growing up. It's not a small town. It's like a small city. It's like that in between kind of step. And what I've been discovering too, just having conversations with certain clients, there's been some people from all over the world that if they find Calgary too busy, some of them end up like in Swift Current or Moose Jaw.
Hmm.
And a lot of the times, everyone's like, what was Moose Jaw like growing up? And I'll be honest with you, there wasn't really a whole lot to do. I was actually just going down memory lane on the weekend. I hit up a childhood friend. I just came across some stuff, long story short. And I sent her a message being like, apparently we just, we wrote about the same thing and submitted to like one of our grade teachers about something or other. And it always included the same thing, some form of theft. There was, police, there was fires, there was drinking. And I'll be honest, that's kind of like where it was at growing up in the 80s and 90s in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Either you're like sports, if that didn't work out, or like I grew up competitive dancing, but there was always this other shady side.
100%.
I'm
I
like, this
actually,
podcast might go like a little bit on a left turn here. We continue talking about Moose Jaw.
oh yeah, I've fun fact. I've been to Moose Jaw as well. Not too much to it, and it was on the way in terms of like a Saskatchewan tour, and we ended up in places like Weyburn and that sort of stuff. But
Mhm.
then I actually know three people from Moose Jaw, grew up in Moose Jaw, so you will be the fourth. So
I'm added to the list now. I feel very special.
yeah, it's an
Then there's
elite
the other
list.
side of the population. They're like Moose Jaw. Too
That's
funny.
funny. So
Yeah.
two sides to Moose Jaw. Hey, like you're either into a sport, like you mentioned,
Yeah.
or like barn burners,
Yeah.
and
Pretty much. Yeah.
fires, fire pits, lots of drinking and partying as well too. Like, so you were kind of oscillating in between both those.
Yeah. Pretty much. You do your thing during by day and then by night. That's what it kind of felt like.
Yeah.
But honestly, like Moose Jaw's still great. I only go back for like maybe the really most important stuff. And Moose Jaw's just not on my list to like always go back to.
Hmm.
Most of the people I've known, and just I mean I when I moved away from Moose Jaw, that would have been like even 2001. So then I was in Regina for X number of years until then I moved to Calgary. So Musha was not very high on my list. And I feel like everybody who's kind of in the center of the country, they usually make their way out west anyways, right? So
Hmm.
there's always people coming through Calgary for a visit. So that
Hmm.
works out.
Uh, did you move to Regina then? Sorry, for like high school, university? Because you said you were there till you were 15. You said, right?
So I would have been in my early 20s when I relocated to Regina.
Oh, gotcha.
And it was just actually for work. I started my professional career there that has nothing to do with what I am doing today. But I don't know about you guys. I think when you look back on, the young adult side of you, got what it takes and sweat, blood, and tears. And you bring some of those traits with you, right? Like the customer service side, I learned how to deal with people. I learned how to talk to people. Like I think a good foundation of my business skills were definitely built in that time period. So I would be actually, yeah, I'd be in Regina for probably close to 12 years before then coming to Calgary. And Regina's great too, but it's still like a small center. And it was a tough decision to also, when I started building my business, which is Trena Laine, 3 years after building that and having that network and having those support. And meanwhile, this is only like during a time frame where Facebook was the first like social media platform that we all had available when Facebook was cool. There was no politics. Remember those good old days?
Hmm.
And so moving to Calgary kind of was exciting, but also challenging because I had to rebuild my network. I had to rebuild my clientele. I had to kind of navigate and figure out all of that. But I would have been 30 at that time, making that transition from Regina to Calgary. So again, your gumption is there. It's a little bit more, right? So yeah, it's been kind of interesting just seeing kind of, where you kind of start and then the things you kind of transfer over to. And like, I don't know how deep you guys want to go into stuff, but we can like chat about a lot of things, to be honest, a lot of things that I've learned within that time frame. Still learning.
Yeah. So you mentioned you went to Regina for work. What and to start your career, what kind of work were you doing at the time then?
So when you're on an airplane and they tell you about the emergency exits and the illuminated flooring, I actually was a sales rep removing that type of product on airplanes.
Nice.
Yeah, it was actually quite fun. And again, this was a time period before we had all this like sophisticated technology to do our jobs, right? So I was always in the office and it was in a shared space with other businesses. So I got to actually meet a whole bunch of different type of people. And I would say that was probably the beginning of me understanding what networking was. Until then, I actually understood what networking actually
Hmm.
meant moving forward.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, you say shared space, like that was before like co-working and
Yeah,
all that thing became like popular, right? It's just like you guys bunking in, sharing an
yeah.
office, that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, then where they have like a shared reception area, like, and it's nice to see that because I guess those also would mean like that's where the word community comes from too, in workplace, right? So, yes, this would have been like early 2001 for me
Hmm.
in Regina.
The company you were working with, but did they only sell lighting, or was it just a bunch of different things? And like airlines was one of the subsects of that business.
They sold quite a bit to like other companies. I'll like, even just kind of back up a little bit. The reason why they hired me is I actually had just graduated from travel and tourism. So I was starting my travel agency career at the time of airlines and, Sun Fun Vacations. They're no longer in business. They're all now building online booking tools. And that was still messy at that time. So that's like going
Hmm.
back to like 1999. It's funny how you remember you're so excited about your career and then you're like, oh, I might get wiped out in the next 2 years because here comes an online booking tool. Like there goes your career, right? So you had to get kind of savvy and figure it out. And then I realized actually I'm just really good with sales and just like actually dealing with people. So I kind of, long story short, just kind of shazzied that way.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was working for this company for maybe about a year. And then I decided just to go back to actually bartending
Nice.
because
That's it.
it's people. And I mean, I was still in my early 20s. I was like, why do we have to rush to figure out our career right now? That's kind of where I was at.
Yeah. No, I
That's
mean that's kind
actually
of what
where I
your
was at.
twenties are about. right? Like
Yeah.
20s are for experimenting and finding things and
Yeah.
what moves you and excites you and having
Yeah.
fun in the process.
Experimenting, not being so pressured, because I feel there's a lot of that, even when a lot of my clients are quite young in the beauty industry and they think they need to have everything together today. And I'm like, let's just settle down here. You got some time, like what is it that actually makes you tick, right? And I felt like that's where I was at. And bartending was great. You're meeting people, and I bartended more so during the day. So I kind of was like the person who just took care of like everybody, and I loved it. And I made way faster cash, tips included, to start helping pay off student loans, right? That heavy financial burden you get too when you're in your early 20s, right? So
Yeah, totally.
yeah, it's just very interesting how when you look back on that, and that was just to me kind of like simple times.
Hmm.
Then I started taking
Yeah,
on some odd jobs. The next thing you know, there was like 30 things going on, but that's okay. That's what you do when you're in your 20s. And
yeah.
stuff all your money in a pillowcase or a jar, right? We all did that.
So walk us through that. So you're bartending, early 20s. What happens next?
Well, funny enough, this is actually where I would meet my late husband. We actually met through some friends. She's also now also my sister-in-law. So at the time she had phoned to say, hey, a few of us Moose Jaw peeps are all getting together at a bar, like whatever down the street. And I was like, oh, actually, this is my night off. I'm done by this time. I'll swing by. The only person I didn't know actually was Aaron. And so this would be the first encounter that I would have with Aaron. And then I wouldn't see him for another 2 years before we would like officially kind of start dating, if you will. And I just remember that time period just being super fun and laid back. And this is even before texting. This is even before like proper cell phones, right? So
Hmm.
you just race home to check your voicemails. I'm like thinking to myself, how old are you guys? Do you even know what I'm talking about?
I remember voicemails. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. It was kind
Answering
of
machines.
exciting. Yeah, checking your voicemail, right? And then until, then things got a little bit more sophisticated and you could like check your voicemails from another phone. That was like a whole other level for me. I was like,
Hmm.
what is this? So, I look back at that time period and that part was pretty great. Then I always had an interest in beauty, health, and wellness. And then I would find myself actually moving into a position where I was kind of more like the health rep for the new organics aisle in Superstore. That was
Nice.
like a big deal. Like those aisles didn't exist yet until like the early 2000s. And so I was
Hmm.
kind of part of that in a small way. And it was just great to have a conversation, especially with women, right? And even being in my 20s, I'm like, I get it. Like I was on a different type of like health kick, focusing on myself, understanding nutrition. I had some complications, as a younger person. So to have a conversation about what does vitamin B do for the body? Magnesium. A lot of
Hmm.
the things we now have like access to, everyone's a little bit more educated. So that actually for me was just real fun to be able to connect. But then politics get in the way as they do in a big corporation. And the lady who kind of ran the pharmacy disliked me for some odd reason. And I just remember all of a sudden I was in this random meeting with HR and her. And at one point I was like, I don't even know what this meeting is about. Like, what have I done? And that's when I realized I don't think I can work for a corporation like this. So once
Hmm.
again, here I am exiting something as such. And then a friend of mine had opened up an Italian restaurant. And so then I went and actually worked for him.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see the pharmacist being like, we're getting less clients. What's going on here? People are healthier. They're eating more
He's
oranges. They're
too
taking their
friendly.
magnesium. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this would be maybe not necessarily understanding it at this time. I would then actually start talking about it later. And I talk a lot about it now. This would also be the time period where in some of these odd jobs, I would also be dealing with sexual harassment from my male bosses. But then some of these women in these positions also surprised me the most. Bullying. There was a ceiling to where I could go without their approval. But at the time, I just didn't understand it. I just felt like I didn't belong. So there was that side to it. And I just kind of hung on with my intuition, being like, everything's always just going to work out. I've always known that since I was 8. You're always going to
Hmm.
be okay. Everything's always going to work out. And so that would be kind of how I started building my career, was always just kind of doing this. Eventually, I would get into working for myself, because then this way I could choose who I'd want to work with, how I want to spend my time, who would I want to spend it with. That became kind of like my mantra in my early 20s. So then I, at some point, got busy educating myself in the beauty and the wellness industry. Because I was like, at that point, I was like, enough. I'm tired of it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
and I also wanted to be in a position of empowering other women, not, being that person that doesn't allow them to grow or feel good about themselves, right? At some point, I didn't realize it then, but there'd be repetitive patterns where I'd be so stressed out, anxious, but you don't talk about these things. Not at this time, not yet, anyways. And insomnia would kick in because I'd be in this constant pressure of like, oh, fuck, I got to deal with tomorrow and deal with whoever,
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that was already happening to me at such a young age. And now it's just part of a lot of the things that I teach and that I coach, and becomes part of the storytelling. Kind of shapes you a little bit. Sucks at the time. But again, what have I learned from that? Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I guess for that period of time and for those women as it relates to I've heard this phrase before as it relates to like sometimes like women will be like they're almost like worse to women like in certain situations. Like what do you think that period and maybe those positions and those companies had in regards to like structural and social constructs that kind of caused that type of behavior or the what you were experiencing?
This is my whole brain with a lot of reflections. I think it was hard in the 80s and the 90s, and then trickling into the years to come, like probably the next decade or two, for women to actually really feel like they're thriving in such a masculine energy environment, right? So we're operating at times where maybe during a certain time in our cycle, Geez, you're about to have a kid. Like, I'm sure there's been moments too where your wife's like, I'm just tired today. And we've never been taught to actually honor that, especially in the workplace. And so
Hmm.
now we're kind of coming into a roundabout way. And I think that's why a lot of women are either like pairing themselves with the right group of people, or they're doing their own thing and choosing who they're working with and hiring accordingly, is because they want to create something that isn't so like drive, drive, drive and push, push, push. So I think there was such pressure. And then at somewhere along the lines too, I think our roles in our homes also got a little confusing, because we got work and then we got the home. And then within the home is usually what? Mostly female driven. Things are changing, and things have, yes, evolved since, but I'm talking like, I think for a good chunk into the 2000s, even if you were to go and watch a movie from the 2000s, like a simple rom-com, there is still something incredibly that I was like, oh, that's kind of painful to watch. But that's just the position women were put in. So unfortunately, we're not thriving, we're just surviving. And it's interesting when now in places you see that, like, stop surviving and just thriving. There's some like meaning behind that, because it's been kind of a long haul for women to kind of find their place and really be in a place where you can just use your feminine energy and not be judged for it. Because
Hmm.
everything is very male energy right now, like, right? The whole world, like everything, right? So it does, I think, create an impact without us maybe not necessarily really fully understanding it. So that's been just my observation. And in my reflections going back to that time period where I'm like, they only knew what they knew. And then I go back to high school and I was like, oh yeah, one week I'm a bully and the next week I'm being bullied, right? Like we all go through something, right? So it's like just very interesting times. And most of the
Hmm.
problems are usually with women. So, I mean, there's the male side too, because I also think too with men, especially today, and maybe you guys can relate because you both also, work for yourself. You've created communities, but you've also surrounded yourself with other males who probably make you feel good, or you can bring things to the table and have like some actual honest conversation, not just the typical, man, what a work day. Let's just go get a drink. It's like something deeper. And I think that's where we all are, especially here rolling into 2026. I've been feeling that for a while, is that we all just need a little bit more depth in the relationships that we're in to be able to support us. Because otherwise, who do you turn to? And I realize, people would label me as, oh, she's always got it together. She's so independent. You're so strong. But what does that actually mean? Like, strength to me is being vulnerable in all the shades of all emotions and having these kind of types of conversations. So when I look back at that time period, I'm like, she didn't know any better. But deep down, I was like, I can't be part of it. Must run.
Mm-hmm.
Got to go. you know?
Yeah, I mean, having that kind of attitude working in a corporation doesn't serve the corporation well. So I'm
No,
sure like that you said that it wasn't a fit. You were feeling like you didn't belong there.
no,
They want people to kind of be in line, do the thing, and if you're stirring it up a little bit, yeah, it's like it's not going to work, right? So that's typically
no.
when people go off and start their own thing or find another fit. And they always say like people don't leave crappy companies, they leave crappy managers,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it sounds like that's kind of what happened with that pharmacist or other ladies or whoever was there. But walk us through like your first business. So you said you worked at the Italian restaurant, and then when did you start your own first business?
So while I was working at the Italian restaurant, um, next door was an eye clinic. And so the one girl who had been my age, she was administrative assistant there. She'd always come over for a cup of coffee and a cigarette. This is when smoking was still cool in places.
Hmm.
And so we would always just ham it up and chat. And in a short amount of time, she said, they're looking to hire a pre-tester. So, when you go get your eyes checked, you always start off with someone first before you see the eye doctor. So I actually ended up filling that role. And this was around the time that Aaron and I would be dating, we're first engaged, and, potentially talk about getting married. So everything feels great. I really excelled at that job, but there was kind of some red flags too. This male boss would then proceed for the next 2 years, making passes at me, sexual things towards me. It was stressing me out. So the money is there, but how do you walk away from a paycheck? And that's when I was like, something's got to change. I don't know what it is. And Aaron didn't really know how to deal with that kind of stuff either, but I also didn't let him in. I talk about a lot of this now because, again, when you're independent, you just deal with all the shit yourself. Plus, our relationship was fairly new. So to like lean on him for emotional support at that time wasn't really available, nor did he know how to provide that at that time. We're fairly young, just figuring out our careers, right? So, and at that time, it's like you don't really go and start a business just yet because, again, you don't really have a lot of platforms available. So, when I say old school, I built my business part time while working full time. I said no to things that didn't work for me. I started attending networking businesses. Aaron was there with me. We started traveling to go to different businesses and conference meetings. We sold furniture. We sold his speaker system. Like I'm talking about the 8-foot speakers just to go somewhere in Minneapolis and rub shoulders with other people who actually thought differently about how to work and how to play.
Hmm.
So we got busy doing things differently. And that actually was my favorite time. I might cry. We had nothing to lose, right? Where
Hmm.
you care, but you actually don't care.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't attached to things. We weren't attached to material things. We were just attached to a dream and changing our lives together.
Yeah. Just a just an aside here as well too. I knew Aaron quite well.
I know. He
Yeah.
talked about me a lot.
Oh man, I miss that guy. I didn't even know that he passed until you came onto the show, and I saw on your
Oh my
auto on
God.
your yeah, I know, on your autograph on your email saying Dear Aaron, and I was like, what? And I looked it up, and I was like, are you serious? Like I had no idea. I remember telling Gil that day.
Oh,
That's when I first found out because him and I worked out together for like 2 years probably, like multiple times a week. Like I went to Flames games with him, and we hung out. And my connection to him was through Michael Best,
yes.
and the three of us would always work out and hang out. And yeah, fuck, our Aaron was a good dude. He was a
He was
great guy.
beautiful. Yeah, he
Um,
was beautiful. I'm surprised Michael didn't tell you because they were at his celebration of life event.
yeah, I know. Yeah, me too. I was I had no idea
Yeah.
about it until much after, actually just recently. So it's all kind of hit home for me very recently. But hearing about this through your perspective now is a beautiful thing as well too. So
Thank you. I
let's get back to
appreciate
that.
that.
No, of course, yeah, no. So
Oh, I appreciate that. And you know what? You're not the only one, Hafiz, that has reached out to me since. Like a lot of people are still maybe just finding out, or now they're finally feeling like they're in a place where they want to share something with me. And that is still beautiful. Like I just had someone send me a really long message. Took me about 7 days to like actually read it a couple times and then respond to it. And I just thought this is what this is. Just
mm,
connecting with people, right? Having that heart. But
yeah.
yeah, I just, some of those moments back in time were just really simple. Maybe not the most strategic. But again, we're in a time period where whatever, let's just make things happen. So we started to grow together professionally and personally, like in that direction. I didn't make the last day of me resigning from the eye clinic. I I couldn't even do it anymore. I was like, I'm not gonna go. And then I found out later they had cake and everything for me on my last day. And I no showed. I was like, I'm done. I trained the next person. She's good. And yeah, the rest is history. And I just got busy. I joined the Saskatchewan Women's Entrepreneurs, similar to Alberta Women Entrepreneurs. And I just went to all the things. I attended all the things. I was hungry, I was willing, and I just wanted to learn. And my network blew up because I also pride myself on customer service and understanding, like actually like having that business mindset and what it takes to actually be able to work with other people. And I kind of built an amazing community, really. And then when I say old school stuff, I would partner up with like other small local businesses and we would do like either some like giveaways together before again social media platforms. I would have drop boxes to enter to win certain things with me in certain places. And then this is how I'm collecting my email database. Like all these things took time and energy and it was fun. Not gonna lie.
Mm,
It was fun. It was such a good time. And at the same time, too, I mean, this is like going 20 years back. So, I mean, it was a different time then, too. Expenses weren't like high, especially for living, too, right? So we had a bit of flex just to kind of do the things. And then, as
mm.
I said, so then a few years after of rocking and rolling, we made the decision to move to Calgary. So then I was like, well, I knew what worked. I knew what kind of didn't work, rinse and repeat. And that's what I did when I got to Calgary.
This episode is brought to you by Bloom Benefits Group. Bloom Benefits is disrupting employee benefits by rethinking the status quo. They provide exceptional customer service while saving you money. Bloom offers group benefits and retirement products, health and wellness accounts, executive benefits, life insurance, and disability and critical illness. Available to companies across Canada, Bloom helps clients save money without interrupting current plans. Check them out at bluebenefits.ca.
Young professionals, families, and entrepreneurs. What makes Zelos Investment Counsel different? Our independence, client focus, and access. Zelos Investment Counsel is independent from banks and brokerages, which ensures clients' best interests are served without corporate conflicts. We are fiduciary portfolio managers with a duty to clients that doesn't exist in the brokerage model. At Zelos Investment Counsel, we exist to care for our clients, and every day we strive to help our clients reach their goals. We provide our clients with access to institutional investment managers and sector specialists through our proprietary investment structure. For more information, book your no obligation meeting today at zelosglobal.com. That's www.zelosglobal.com.
Attention all car owners. Is the winter weather turning your beloved ride into a rusty relic? Fear not, because we've got the solution you've been dreaming of. Crown Rust Protection. Picture this, your car defying the elements, standing strong against rust like a knight in shining armor. Crown Rust Protection is not just a shield, it's an investment in the longevity and resale value of your vehicle. Don't let rust take the wheel. Book your Crown Rust Protection treatment today and let your car embrace its inner superhero. Call now at 403-291-1951 or book your appointment at www.krown.com. Our skilled technicians are ready to give your car the VIP treatment it deserves. Crown Rust Protection, because your car deserves to age like fine wine, not rusty vinegar.
Today's episode is brought to you by Motive, a leading venture builder with over a decade of experience helping corporates and startups build, launch, and scale successful business ventures. Whether you're looking to innovate your business model, develop a game-changing product, or craft a winning go-to-market strategy, Motive is with you every step of the way. Their proven venture building process and technologies help reduce risks and accelerate time to market. Innovation is everywhere. Let's harness it together. Visit motive.digital to learn more. That's Motive spelled M-O-T-I-V.
Yeah. Just, I think it sounded like a natural evolution as it relates to kind of going and starting businesses and working for yourself. But did you have like entrepreneurial inspirations in your family or early childhood or anything like that?
Well, if we want to go back to my childhood, actually, this is kind of fun. I'm moving next month. So remember how I mentioned I messaged my childhood friend? So I was combing through like childhood memorabilia that I still had in containers that I've been slowly getting through. This also includes, I still had some remaining items of errands as well. So I was like, I need to downsize a bunch of stuff, right, moving forward. No pun intended there. But going through my childhood memorabilia, it's a lot of drawings, a lot of poems, a lot of writing books. Like I'm combing through like my scrapbooks. I'm combing through all these things that was just fun and artsy and just the creative genius. Like I was the girl who would also have a video camera. Do you guys remember Beta? It was Beta, then VHS.
Mm.
So Beta was like the big thick tape, and the size of the video camera was so heavy that you couldn't just hold it. I couldn't anyways, being the age that I was. So it always had to be on a tripod, and we would make movies. I would film stuff at school. Like it was just, that was my childhood. And a part of me when I got into my early 20s was like, why can't I create that? Like I've always been an artist. Even my grade one yearbook, you know how we have our little cute profile photo and your details, like what do you aspire to be? And I'm like, I'm going to be an artist in Regina. And that's how I did start. I was like, yay, I'm on the path, right? There was always something inside me where I'm like, create, connect, and bring people together. So I kind of had a different spin where I started more with skin therapy, and then professional makeup artistry kind of came very fast shortly thereafter. And I became known as the professional makeup artist who could also tackle skin problems, concerns, you name it. And that's actually what I built my career on, was being able to help women that way. And then I started teaching and hosting workshops, and everything is just really sped up. Next thing you know, I'm like coaching and training aspiring artists, helping other women in their careers, working with other beauty and wellness entrepreneurs. And literally that's just been kind of like it since. Obviously some bumps, highs, lows, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like my childhood, I was combing through all that memorabilia and I'm like, how fun. Like, do you guys have any of your stuff?
I do too, for
Yeah.
sure. I used to draw and doodle all the time. I'd be pretty proud of it as well.
Yeah.
And my parents' house, in my bedroom, if you open up my little dresser there, I sometimes go through that. Like I've got like Street Fighter, animations or whatever I drew, Mortal Kombat stuff or whatever, like it's funny, like you start to kind of tack on adult things in your life, but you're really kind of like repressing who you are as a child. So
Yes.
the
Mhm.
artists of the world that can continue to do what they love, like those are the ones that have like nailed it, Like
They
I'm
did
not
it.
when I see someone as a musician, you see someone that's like 75 years old still playing on a concert or whatever, you're like, damn, you lived the dream. Like that's it, you
They
know?
did it. Yeah. I know. I think, well, I don't think, I think that's part of a lot of the things too that I talk about when I'm hosting workshops and master classes or just things like this. We lose our childlike wonder.
Mhm.
We forget play. Like everything just becomes so serious. And I was like, no wonder I struggled like in a place like Superstore. I was like, this is too rigid.
Mhm.
Not working out. I'm like, what do you mean there's rules? I felt like that too in school when I hear about like someone's child ran away from school today, got in a fight with so and so. I was like, yeah, I can relate. I'm like, I had a hard time sometimes with recess because I'm like, wait, I'm in a creative moment. Why do I have to leave this now to go play? Like it was just, there was just so many roadblocks and just to be in this like constant like what everybody else is doing, sometimes I have a really hard time.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I think I'm better just kind of doing my own thing. But it doesn't mean you don't get kind of still swallowed up and pushed in with what everybody else is doing and you think that's what you should be doing, right? So as you said, somewhere along the lines, we all kind of lose that inner child and our childlike wonder. And I'm always like, bring it back.
Mhm.
Like, bring it back. What brings you
Or
joy?
yeah, find things that give you a state of flow, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, talk about that. So, like, well, two things first. It sounds like you're killing it in Regina. Things are going well. Why the move, first of all?
Well, at some point, I just felt like things were kind of stagnant. And when I had met Aaron, he was working actually on the rigs, but he was based in Calgary.
Mhm.
And he always loved it out here too. Like there was, and he's also actually from Moose Jaw. We just didn't know each other growing up. So we would
Mhm.
meet later that one night. And so for him, he always just was like, no, I really like Calgary. And we just got to talk. Well, we were in Vegas. That's what it was. We were in Vegas and we're just like laying by the pool and we're like, where do we really want to end up? Like, where would be home? We both enjoy biking. We both enjoy like hiking. And I'm not like a big like winter person, but I'm like, but maybe I could become one. Living in Alberta, especially Calgary, where they have Chinooks, whatever that meant. Didn't know that then. And yeah, it kind of happened really fast. I felt like we were like July, and then by November we moved. Like everything just happened, and I felt like the stars were aligned. All of a sudden, we were selling the house. Like all these things were just happening. We're like, oh, we're going. But again, we were both in our early 30s, and I think that's where you just feel this is where we just need to be. And again, we didn't have children. We weren't attached to things. We're like, let's just go. Let's just go. What do we have to lose? Another kind of like moment for us. And we moved out here to Calgary with a different game plan where the company actually left us kind of high and dry.
Mhm.
And we scrambled to pull it together and figure things out pretty fast. Was it painful? Yeah. We were moving like out of our swanky downtown Calgary apartment faster than we like moved in. That's what it felt like. And we were just like, whatever, we'll rally. That's what we do. We'll just rally. We'll figure some stuff out. And then that's where Aaron kind of found himself going back into the oil and gas, especially the health and safety sector, because he was really
Mhm.
talented in that area. And then I just got busy doing my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what at the time what was the game plan in terms of the business, and then why did you guys have to pivot when you guys got to Calgary?
Well, in Regina, I was part of a wedding magazine
Yeah.
through one of the publications there, and they wanted to expand in Calgary. So
Mhm.
Aaron didn't have anything lined up yet. So we just we based everything into this publication. And we're like a month in, and yeah, they left us kind of high and dry. So, it's kind of funny because when some of us talk about the beginning of the pandemic, right? Like we all didn't know what was going on. It was not like the best, whatever. I felt like at that time period, it was kind of like that. We're like, well, let's just still go celebrate life and just go do our thing. Figure it out. Maybe not like the smartest things, but so that was a hard lesson. Get things in writing. Remember contracts? They do work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone's got a story about the contract, and quickly realize, yeah, those are gold. Like you need that. Handshake agreements are cool until they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So lots of hard lessons, but at the same time, lots of just great memories because that's just what it is. When you're with the person you love, nothing actually really else matters. We're just doing us. We're doing our thing, right? Was it stressful? Yes, absolutely. But I also wouldn't change most of it for the world. That was like some of my most favorite times was just us being us, doing our thing.
Yeah. Yeah, business is a little bit of a roller coaster, eh? Like you just never know what happens or how what's going to happen, things that are outside your control, and you just have to like deal with it right there and then, right?
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think that's just even if you work for someone or you work for yourself, like you just don't know. Right. So I think with age, we started to get a little bit more wiser and get more, let's get our ducks in a row, get some things in place because you just never know too what other things are going to happen. Like for me, the pandemic was still like a huge eye opening because a good chunk of my business, like with the weddings and the event side, stopped. All my coaching and training, okay, figure it out, we're online. So there was ways to navigate. And then I still feel for Aaron to this day in his role because when you're in health and safety, like there's enough on your plate when you're dealing with certain things within that industry. But now here they're wanting these guys to like measure a virus. And Aaron's like, I am not a doctor. Like, what is going on? So I know there was some elevated stress for him during that time frame, but at the same time, we were both at home together because he would have lost his job in 2016. And then he took a job and then he left for like 3.5 years. Like I hardly saw him. So maybe that was probably around the time frame when maybe you stopped seeing him for a bit there, Hafiz, or it'd be like once in a blue moon because he was on the road a lot. So the pandemic actually kind of brought us back together, which in hindsight was probably the best thing for us and for me because I got to see him, right? But there is a lot of like hard lessons that you kind of figure out along the way to be like, how can we set ourselves up for that? And that's the position I've been in since 2020. And then since Aaron has passed, is creating something that just feels more yummy. There's a little bit more sustainability and getting the right people in place to help you make that happen. Because I feel like a lot of solopreneurs, and this is where a lot of my coaching clients are at right now, and why they reach out is that they've been shouldering so much for so long. And I'm like, I get that. Because while my business was exciting and things were growing, I was pulled in so many different directions. And here comes burnout. And then I'm questioning everything. Do I even enjoy doing what I do anymore? I was like, I'm not even having fun. That's scary. That's scary. It was for me anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, burnout sucks for sure. And when you start losing the joy of the thing that you loved at one point, you know that you need to take a step back and reevaluate, right? And kind of figure that out. And sometimes it's too late because you get into this deep, dark kind of hole and you don't really know what's going on. But luckily, you find a way to climb yourself out. And after I heard about Aaron passing, and I kind of did a deep dive into some of the work that you're doing and some of the media that you had been pushing out and whatever in your book, it sounds like that is the focus of some of the work that you're doing is burnout and educating people on either tactics or through your story, lessons learned, stuff like that as well too. But what is it safe to say, like alongside your Trena Laine, because you do like your master classes and makeup and weddings and stuff like that, right? Like that's your primary. Is that done?
Oh,
Okay.
no. The pandemic was a huge eye opener for me because I realized a good chunk of my profit was actually needing a person to make money. And I was like, okay, I got to shift gears because if something was to happen again, that'd be great. Plus, I'm already in my 40s at this point. And I'm like, I got to be realistic. So make a long story short, I was already in a place of letting, like everything just was amping up in 2022 for me. There was other things kind of going on. Again, feeling that pull, and I was like, I don't want to go back to 2019. Like what have I learned? What have I not learned? Like that needs to be highly considered moving forward. Meanwhile, I'm watching Aaron change roles within a company. And then I thought he was making more money to also kind of scale back with time. But he's now being pulled in all these different directions. It was really hard to watch him, but also understand like what I was going through. And this is just in 2022. Like this wasn't that long ago. And I was like, hey, I need to be really smart with this next move. And weddings were no longer fun. There was something about anxiety before I would even open up that inbox. And I'm like, okay, what's going on with my nervous system? Like, right, you're doing all these things. And I'm like, there's nothing wrong with you. You just need to be honest and actually say, okay, like, let's make a plan here. So my plan was to eventually weed out weddings and events and just focus more solely on like online coaching and training, offering my master classes. Like, this is where I shine. I enjoy speaking. I enjoy like this kind of side. And this is where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron passes early 2024. I didn't take on any more weddings, just wrapped up those. And then 2024 actually marks the last weddings. I've even scaled back on seeing clients for hair and makeup. I'm just doing things a little bit more radical. Is it scary? Fuck yeah. I've had moments where I'm like, what am I doing? But then I'm like, but I've also been given a gift of some time. And what have I learned? Seeing myself start to go down a path, and then I'm watching Aaron. Like his capacity was just, and he didn't know how to get out of it, and I didn't know how to help either, right? So there was so much conflict for what felt for way too long, for 2 years. And then he passed, and then that's when I actually was just like, enough. And it's been very slow, very gradual in this journey that I've been in, because I want to do things just differently, and I want to do things that just give me a little bit more peace, because I felt like I hadn't had that for a while. We hadn't had that for a while. So yeah, there's a lot that has shifted in my business. Like weddings was easy to be like, see ya. Like there's no FOMO at all. You know, everyone's still doing all the wedding shows, sharing their stuff. And I'm like, I'm not really missing out. I know what's going on over there.
Yeah.
You know, like that hustle. Like I'm a fan of ambition, you guys. But if it's at the cost of like not knowing how to properly rest, not you like that fidgety rest where just things just don't turn off. We're just constantly like, or we're becoming agitated or we're becoming cynical. Like there's so many things that just start to kind of happen and you feel like you're just in this cycle and you just don't know kind of how to get out, or you feel like you have to take on everyone else's problems and pain and always being that person without focusing on you. To me, it's like, I don't want a career like that anymore. I've done that for way too long.
Yeah. So when Aaron passed, and how did the book come about, and what was that whole time like, and you know what's the story behind that?
It's a great question. You know, I've always been writing and journaling. And for years, I was like, Aaron, I think we should write a book. Because in the earlier part of our relationship, we would soon discover that Aaron can't have kids. And at a time frame where everybody else is having kids. So we had to navigate like grief then together. I did. I wanted 4 or 5 kids. I wanted a big family. Like, let's do all the things, right? So, you know, and so did Aaron. Like Aaron would have been an amazing dad. So he just became like an amazing uncle, if you will, right? So when we go back kind of, we're like just the history of like our relationship and some of the turmoil we experienced and some of the highs, and the love there and some repeated patterns. When stress hits, there's always like a sliver of conflict. And that was usually more so kind of with Aaron. And I would always help him navigate, but we were always rallying together. And then at some point, I just feel like we weren't coming together in 2022. And when I thought we were starting to finally have these conversations, things we weren't dealing with, we weren't talking about it. But you know what we did 2 years ago, this January, right now? We bought a house. Let's buy a house and let's renovate it because that solves all marriage problems, right, guys? We were still in this path of staying busy and keeping busy but it was like avoiding. And then when I thought we were finally having some conversations, he passed. And then that's when I was like, I literally actually heard it. You got to start talking about these things, start writing about it. And that became a huge chunk of my healing journey. Like I had to comb through some really ugly stuff, things we never had proper closure over, things we avoided together. I literally have a chapter called Forgiveness versus the Blame Game because you could go down a dark, dark, stormy alley and point fingers at all the things. And at the end of the day, this is what it was supposed to be. But for me to move forward, I was like, we didn't deal with a lot of the things. We had lost time for like 3.5 years. Then we're dealing with a pandemic. We're both trying to figure that stuff out. Like it was just so much chaos. And if we're letting all the chaos from the outside world coming into, like there's just so many things, we don't have enough time for me to even get into it. But that's how I just started pouring all of this into my book. So the book was already kind of there. It just now started taking shape and became my biggest therapy and has like turned into this most profound journey and experience where I'm like, if I can just help other people, and I'm helping myself and I'm just changing the narrative and starting these important conversations, because a lot of these conversations are still taboo and very uncomfortable, especially when you come from a marriage standpoint, right? Because we all bring what? Speaking of our childhood, we bring what? Our childhood into our adult lives too, right? Not dealing with all the stuff that we never fully dealt with if we didn't get the chance to yet. So there was pain, love, turmoil. It was dark and stormy. And then there was just a lot of beautiful things within the mess that this entire time, he's had my back. So write the book, Trina, get it done. That's what I heard. Because I'm like, even too, I'm like, when I think about it, I'm like, it's kind of crazy, like you're just a fresh widow and you're like, I'm just going to publish a book. Like who? I guess that's just what I needed to do. And it's taken me on this beautiful journey.
Yeah, no, it sounds like that was like you said, like cathartic or therapeutic for you to get it all out of your head and get it into paper with a strong why to help others through the process as well too. So yeah, good for you. I think that can go a number of different ways when someone unexpectedly passes. Life could completely spin you around and you don't really know where you land, and it could get crazy messy and go dark real fast. So it sounds like you channeled a lot of that into something healthy and something that would, yeah, potentially be a lot of help for a lot of people as well too, and yourself included, right? So that takes a lot of courage, and yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, it always inevitably when someone passes, it makes you reflect on your own mortality and how we're just here for a brief moment of time. Just kind of knowing what you know today, what kind of impact do you want to have?
I think it's about legacy for me, and Aaron's legacy too. He meant a lot to a lot of us. He was a beautiful human being, and the complexities that we all have, it's that side that I think we really need to have, like that depth in our relationships. I've been very blessed and grateful to have that. And yeah, just the impact is also, it's not a strong strategic plan. I'm also just open to something different, that I feel that something else is taking shape. Like when Aaron passed, well, I'll kind of back this up a bit. I knew something was happening. Like there was a strong frequency, like something else was shifting. And I was like, what is going on? And there was a few, I would spend actually quite a few months before he passed waking him up, being like, are you going to work today? What's all happening? And there was one particular morning when I went to wake him up, and it took a bit for him to wake up. And I was like, fuck, you're such a dead sleeper. And then that morning, and I feel that I don't have trauma. Maybe there's still some partial shock there, but I've also never felt more honored that he wasn't on the road. Like he actually passed away in our home.
Mhm.
And so I went to wake him up and then realized, I was like, oh my God, I've been here. So there was quite a few things that just kind of kept telling me like, you're in the right place. But I will also say this, like even 5 months after Aaron had passed, I felt like I was behind in my life. It was things like that that I had to start actually releasing a lot of that and a lot of old programming, being like, I don't have to be on anyone's time. I don't have to be on anyone's schedule. Like this morning, I actually slept until 7, you know, and it's very rare that I actually need an alarm clock, to be honest, because usually I'm like, whatever. But I was like, roll with how you need to roll, rest when you need to rest. And I think that's just the impact is just maybe even more of the things that are happening for me behind the scenes. And that's also okay and good enough. I don't know what's going to be written even more. And I don't need to actually have a strategic plan. I always felt like I had such a tight grip. We both did. We had such a tight grip on so many things that, again, where does the joy go? So for the first time, I'm literally kind of just like, I'm working on my projects, doing my thing, but just
Mhm.
honoring the space that I'm in.
That's nice. That sounds like a nice place to be. It's just being, and really, it's one of those things that when you look at life as a gift, and as what Gilbert mentioned earlier, like, it is finite, and your mortality, um, it kind of puts a crazy spin on things as well too, right? Like I think as you get tied up into some of these goals, and I'm sure through all the conferences and all the things that you went to when you were younger as well too, like the quote unquote success and the bright lights. What does that end goal look like? When really it is the journey, it is the things that you're kind of just getting through every single day. And I don't know, I feel like it's a conversation that happens more and more lately, um, that people realize that it's not about the glitzy, flashy things. It's the calmness. It's the privilege of being safe. It's the opportunity to have good, quiet conversations and deep conversations with loved ones and slow mornings. And, I think wealth has now shifted in terms of like, is it just the money or is it actually the experience? And how do you want
Yes.
to live your life? Right. So it sounds like that's been a cool transition for you as well to kind of like let go of that grip of what you think you're supposed to have,
Yeah.
and just kind of go with it.
I agree. Like abundance to me is just having a slow morning, not trying to cram a bunch of things in by 10 a.m. When I look at that, I was like, no wonder I wasn't feeling well. Like by 10 a.m., you're like, oh my God, I just checked off 8 things. Now, given we're always in a season, right? But you can't be like that flat out all the time. I
Mm.
think the most biggest thing for me too is just, and I felt like this during the pandemic too, is just having the opportunity just to be kind of slightly a bit more present, just being present. Like once in a while, I'll get the odd question, do you ever think about dating? I'm like, no, no, not even there yet. Because actually, for the first time too, it's actually just nice to like just be with me. Just be with me. I haven't had just me time for like 21 years, really. So I'm like, just being with me is nice. But I realized I'm like, any type of relationship moving forward, I don't think I'm in it for let's grow old together. even in my business. I just want to be open to things that are presently here today and how I want to spend my time today. Not be, and then, heal the things that I need to heal. And there's been a lot of things where I'm like, oh, that doesn't matter anymore. Stop thinking about that, heal that, and again, I feel like that could just be like its own like 1 hour chit chat, right? How the mind is always like constantly, right? Like there's a lot of things, and yeah, but it doesn't mean it's not hard to try not to still want to follow suit with what everybody else is doing. Like there's still some days where I still feel a little anxious because I'm like, oh, it's Monday. Found Aaron on a Monday morning, like it's stuff like that is still kind of there, but at the same time, I'm like, I just want to be present. I didn't want to have a zillion things going on before I jumped on with you guys. I don't want to show up to things tired anymore. I did that for way too long. You put on your game face and you're like, all right, let's record this. But meanwhile, I'm like, did I even remember any of that conversation? Because that's actually where I used to be at, right? You'd be running to all the things and you're like, did I even have a good time? So I'm telling you, I've had a good time on this podcast. Right? Because that's what it is. It's just picking and choosing what actually I think nourishes and feeds my soul. That's what's most important to me right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds all too simple, but very hard to implement fully, right? Like just being like present and intentional. And then it's great that you were able to delete some things from your life as well in terms of things that you were no longer excited about and that you didn't want to do anymore, right? That's sometimes hard as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's just what it is too, expectations. Because I mean, that was a lot of Aaron and I having that conversation where he's like, I just need to quit. He was still doing interviews, even with this new gig. And I was like, babe, just slow it down. Everything doesn't have to be so hard and fast. And, a lot of colleagues reached out after and they're like, it's just the industry, first of all. And second of all, yeah, he was always like that. They'd have a conversation. He'd always be looking for the next biggest thing. And I'm like, maybe just enjoy this for a little bit. Just focus on that. Like, how much more do we need? Right. So I think that's why we all have that little inner conflict because I go through it too. Or as I said, I've had those moments where I'm like, am I behind? And then I'm like, no, you're exactly where you need to be, Trina. Have a cry, stomp your feet like a 2-year-old, move on.
It's good lessons. Yeah, trust the process, slow it down.
Yeah.
One thing I fondly remember of Aaron, and because most of our time was spent at the gym, is that we would have like, a hard 1 hour workout and he would push it always. He would push me to like my limits as well too. And just like fun way. He'd always call me fella as well too. And that was always good. But then we'd always end off our workouts with like basketball or something fun. Like we played pickleball or basketball.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like fun. And I remember thinking like, man, I love this guy so much because we would just sit there and just shoot the shit and have a good time and would play for another 45 minutes. And my business for that time was play as well too. So it was always nice to meet people to do that with. But I will always cherish those moments of just like time doesn't mean anything. You're just here and enjoying it in a state of flow, having a competitive match of pickleball or doing hook shots because that's how we'd always end up playing basketball. Just like silly shit that brought me back to being a child. And I was like, man, this is just fun.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, he was like that too with the nieces and the nephews. He made me think of one Christmas. We're all in Banff and the nephews would have been a little bit younger. So this is probably about 10 years ago. And we were there for 4 days, came back, and then Aaron was just like flat out sick, like fell apart. I'm like, it's because you didn't stop. I'm like, there was always a kid on you. Like, it was just, I'm like, he was like all in all the time. And that's what was great. But I think sometimes those things just caught up to him with age, right? And then I don't know if you know this, because I think this is also too, there was work stress, but then he ended up actually hurting his back playing hockey in 2022. Yes, it would have been his 45th birthday. And it was shortly like after that, because I remember kind of teasing him a bit where I was like, so is his 45? Like, hang in there, man. Like, you got a long ways to go. But that's where you start to see kind of the mental health really decline if you're not moving your body. Because then next thing you know, he's just running to like acupuncture, chiro, physio, but not doing those things that he was once doing. And then he was like really angry a lot because he couldn't go to the gym, because he couldn't work out like he once used to. Like there was a lot of things that were kind of unfortunately kind of happening to him. And we've always known about his heart for 10 years. There was a funky tissue that was kind of just doing something funky. And when the coroner had phoned me those couple days after, she was like, "So his heart." And I was like, "Oh yeah, here we go." I was like, "What's going on?" And she was like, "So that tissue wrapped up like an elastic and literally choked his heart."
Mm.
So he's been she's like, "This didn't happen overnight." So he's been dealing with this and not doing anything about it either for as long as he was.
Mm.
So that became part of like messaging. And I've actually have spoken in, the oil and gas and health and safety sectors where a lot of these men are like, come in and talk about it, because it's still a taboo conversation. A lot of men think that they're showing weakness by saying, "Nope, can't work today," or "I can't work after acupuncture," because Aaron would do that too, right? He'd go for treatment and then be right in the office and then sitting. And I'm like, just go for a walk and just do nothing. But I think your mental and emotional health, right, starts taking a beating.
Mhm.
Body's not doing well either. So it's, I don't know, egg or chicken. I don't know. So I was there for a while, because you go back and forth. And then at some point, you're just like,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it doesn't hurt,
Mhm.
Yeah. No, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story, writing the book. I mean, all the messaging, all the lessons, all the stories, the anecdotes. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can benefit from hearing the message in some way, shape, or form, whether they're dealing with something themselves or someone that they love or care about that's going through some things. There's a lot of value in you sharing your story, and happy to be able to have a platform to continue to share that story. So just wanted to turn the floor over to you just to shout out any ways that people can kind of find out more, connect, anything that you want to draw attention to. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Gilbert. Honestly, just go to my website, trenalaine.com. You can get access to where to find the book. I mean, it's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. How to get involved, how to connect. If there's anything you need, anything you're looking for, my website, my people have been really great rebuilding my website for me too for the last year, right? Find the people to help you. So, but other than that, I'm really grateful for, continuing to just share these conversations and have, be in this journey among other people who are kind of going through their own things. Because I feel grief comes in many different forms, right? It doesn't have to be packaged in death. It could be like in your career, maybe not being able to have children. Like there's just so many of these like different things, right? And sometimes we just
Mhm.
carry these things with us for a little too long. So here I am,
Yeah,
these conversations.
definitely.
So
Yeah,
thank you.
thanks, Trina. It was a pleasure. It was genuinely a pleasure. I wasn't sure how this would go down, um, and it's nice to hear that all the things that have transpired have now been a catalyst for you to do good for yourself and for others as well too.
Thank you.
So keep on that journey. Yeah, we'll definitely be in touch if we can do anything to help with. I think you've set up a memorial fund as well too, and I looked at some other things that you've set up for and Aaron's name as well. Did you want to give those a shout out, or is that on your website as well too?
Yes, actually, you can, it is on my website too, how to access. We're just in the like beginning stages, like we launched, but we're still just obviously in the very beginning. But we launched the Aaron Daniel Alford Scholarship to help those with mental health and then getting into their careers, which is exciting. But as I said, we're just kind of getting started. But if there is a button on my website to go check it out, and then friends of ours over at the Alberta Association for Safety Partners, they actually have built like a nice landing page for us in the time being, which has more details and stuff like that in there too to support that. So that'd be great. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you. Thanks again. We'll definitely see you around, and best of luck with everything going forward.
Thank you. Same to you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Between Two Dots by Intention Media. This podcast is co-hosted by myself, Gilbert Bong, and Hafiz Mita. If you enjoyed this podcast, please rate and review wherever you listen.